you and I were really on the fence about how the Intel thing would go. And then I think I texted you right after it hit, and I'm like, dude, it's up. And you were like, what? What happened with Intel? Give me the rundown.
Yeah, so this file this under things you didn't expect, because when I saw the raw numbers that came out, you know, EPS was off by like $3.80, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And in my mental model, typically is okay when you have write-offs or impairment charges. I'm thinking that doesn't make its way into adjusted EBITDA, right? Not adjusted EBITDA, but non-GAAP EPS. So, but after I went through and did my own financial engineering, and then you texted me, I'm about to get on Yahoo Finance. It's like the stock's up 10%. It pretty much blew my mind. But here's what the street reacted to. So first of all, really good operational performance with a good guide. They beat on revenue by about $260 million. And, when you dig into that, a $15.9 billion impairment charges, 3.1 billion, I think, showed up at the non-GAAP EPS line. And then, without all of that, right, margins would have, been in the 40s. And they had a better than expected EPS, which the expected was a 3-cent loss, turned it into a 15-cent profit. But anyways, with all that stuff, the stock ripped, and then kind of got back in my chair, and it's like the fact that there wasn't bad news, nightmarish news like the quarter before. The stock ripped, and it's priced at well below book value, and they do have tangible assets, not just a bunch of goodwill. They have literally property, plant, and equipment. For those of you who ever took accounting, PPE. So, but here's some of the highlights here. And again, according to the company, 5 nodes in 4 years is on track, and 18A is the turnaround node. Okay. And it's not all I care about, but it's all I care about, because in the end, you can have an okay design and a kick butt process and transistor and do pretty well as long as you've got volume flowing into the fab. And at a time that TSMC is raising prices, it's getting investigated by I don't know. It's maybe not the Department of Justice, but maybe it's CFIUS for selling parts to Huawei through a third party. All this looks good for Intel. The $10 billion cost reduction plans appear to be on track. People got pretty frothy out there on the interwebs talking about another 16K, but it's not another, 16K on top of the 20K or the 20% that they talked about, but it's all built in. So let's break down some of the businesses. PCs were down 7% year over year. AMD has likely took unit share on that. They had a pretty strong Ryzen 9K sell-in to the channel. We're going to be talking about AMD a little bit later. The company, made its point that says, hey, we're going to be shipping 100 million AI PCs by the end of 2025. That's the scale at what they're doing, and is likely going to be quite higher than both AMD and Qualcomm, unless things change. Hey, data center and AI, baby, up 9%. Thank you, Xeon. They launched Gaudi 3, but I don't think that's reflective in the numbers. Pat Gelsinger did take that Gaudi 3 number down. Dan, you can talk a little bit more about that. Surprise, network and edge, albeit a smaller business, was up. That sector has been in the toilet forever for everybody. And it's good to see some year-on-year growth there. Foundry down 8%. I don't even care about that. It's a small number. 18A hasn't kicked in yet. And quite frankly, those are nodes that weren't built for other companies. It was built for Intel.
And I think it's up sequentially too. I think it was just year on year. So they had some good sequential numbers, which
Yeah.
sometimes.
So, yeah, final point here. I'll tear it down 44%. It's a lot larger than I thought. I know the market's rough. We're going to have to see, exactly, what other people in this sector, and not just the other FPGA companies, but in this industrial sector. That sector's been in the toilet, but we have seen some quarter-on-quarter growth once everybody cleared out their inventory from people like On Semiconductor, ADI, Renesas, folks like that. So all in all, stocks ripping, right? No disastrous news is good news, and you got to give Intel credit. Good operational performance and a solid guide, and they beat on revenue.
Yeah, there you go, Pat. I mean, look, I think you and I were both kind of pondering on this impairment. What would happen? Like, holy crap. Because when you first look at the numbers, you're like really bad. It actually gives me some hope for AI and algorithms because it seemed like there was no delay in the ability for it to figure out that these were one-time impairments. There's always a little bit of confusion because the impairments were actually much bigger. It was like 16 billion. And there was about 3 billion that did not, about 3 billion that they were not able to sort of disclude from their non-GAAP number. And I always kind of wonder, you and I aren't accounting. We're not Ernst & Young. We're not running away. And I don't think this is super micro. But the point is like, how does things end up in the impairment and what ends up in non-GAAP, what does not? But the TLDR is they were thinking 3-cent loss net of all of these things. And they got to like 15, 16 cents. And I kept doing the math and it kept ending up a little bit different. But it was in that range.
I know.
It was in that range. So the point is I think the market is kind of asking the question, can the company make money in under normal circumstances without all these impairments? And the signal there was yes, it can make money even with the foundry if it doesn't have to continue to take these impairments. You also got to remember the company's made like $30 billion of investments in the last 2 years since the CHIPS Act was announced. And you know how much money they've gotten from our very efficient government?
Hang on a second. I haven't taken all my pills yet, dude. That's not fair.
Yeah. Well, it won't take you a long time to get to the fact that it's this much. Zero, not a penny has been paid yet. So, they're doing things, and to their credit, they should probably get more credit than they're getting because they've actually continued to push forward, make these investments. Look, there's not a lot in the numbers that got me super excited. I'm not going to sit here and be like 9% or 11% data center growth. I mean, AMD had 122% data center growth. It's hard, but growth is better than not growth. And I think when you're, playing sort of limbo off the bottom, instead of going under the bar, they're stepping over it. And that's good. I mean, that's the step they had to make. I mean, the Gaudi thing that you mentioned is a transition from generation to generation. Gaudi 2 is okay. Gaudi 3 looks like a much stronger product. Now, Pat went on Bloomberg after I did. I warmed it up for him. He went on after I did. And he talked about this, the software flexibility, programmability of Gaudi versus these bigger, sort of flexible, programmable GPUs. And he talked about kind of the roadmap is that Intel wants to get there. But in the meantime, with Gaudi 3, they're working on more programmability, more flexibility, that it can do more of the things that need to be done. I like that product in the enterprise. I know IBM Cloud is doing something with it. I think where it's going to potentially be successful is in the enterprise. It could be a nice hedge. In the same sort of areas where I think Instinct could do well. It doesn't have all the same characteristics, but there are these certain workloads where cost and performance and efficiency, and Signal 65 will have more to say about that soon. That's our testing performance lab. In case you have not bothered to read any of the stuff that's come from them, it's great stuff. So that's kind of where it's at with that, Pat. The client numbers, I'm so conflicted on what's going on with client because we're not really seeing that AI PC liftoff that I think everybody had thought. It's looking like it's a little bit slow. But again, the features haven't really come out yet. And I keep talking about this next generation is going to be software driven, not hardware driven. And so you got something there. What do you got?
No, I mean, it looks like recall got pushed again. I mean, my gosh, it was supposed to be out in June. And I get asked this all the time. Well, Pat, you got up on stage and said the super cycle was going to start in the second half of 25. What's going on? You know what? The software got pushed back 6 months, and the features that were pulled to the front are not nearly as compelling as the killer app is going to be. I mean, we're seeing the same thing with Apple, and we're going to talk about that. So yeah, I just needed to get that off.
Yeah, no. And again, we make our assessments, our market models, we drive our sort of perspectives on things based on information we have. And we have a lot of insights and we get a lot of information, but dates get changed, dates get pushed, products get pushed, and of course revenues will follow. You can't sell something that doesn't exist. Vaporware does not particularly sell all that well. It does create a lot of enthusiasm though. So if people want to be enthused. So that's kind of my TLDR on what went on with Intel. I think it was a surprisingly good quarter for Intel. Last thing I'll say is keep your eyes on the policy gods. The policy gods are the catalyst of the Intel foundry business. Pat said they're going to keep it together. There's a value in this sort of separation of the companies from a standpoint of governance, but at the same time, there is value in having the two arms of the business. We need a strong US-based chip manufacturer to put out some double-digit percentage of leading edge, and that isn't TSMC. They don't meet the requirements. Samsung's having its own woes right now, and I do think if Intel can get its act together, all roads lead to Intel for a nice opportunity for growth in foundry. So we'll leave it there.
Hey, can I actually just to make a long story longer? Something came up on the call that I thought was super interesting. Pat said he's got two new compute-centric 18A customers. So I think the Microsoft and Amazon ones that were disclosed, I believe, are networking. One of them was publicly disclosed as networking. I believe the Azure one is now networking, not Maya, but anyways, I'm trying to think who these two compute folks could be. I mean, my gosh, how provocative is this? Is it NVIDIA? Is it, something off of Marvell XPU, Broadcom XPU? I mean, very, very provocative.
Yeah, well, let's see. I might know something, but I can't tell. I'll never tell. Anyway, all right. So let's.
What do you think it is? I mean, if you got something, spill.
Can't spill.
Huh?
I can't.
All
spill.
right.
Maybe I'll spill to you later, but I can't spill.
All right.